Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back.
This is the third time we're trying this, just so you guys know.
Thanks for making that obvious. Thought I'd mix it up a little bit today, give you my thoughts on some of the hero builds that I think would be interesting and fun for the new Darkness Within units that came out. So let's get into this. So first up we have Mareeta here, and so the build I gave her... Actually, before I go into this, I want to say these are just going to be base level 40 builds. I don't want to cater to super whales who have these at plus 10 with super merge projects and invested a ton of dragon flowers and have specifically built support units giving certain buffs to each unit. This is just how it comes to level 40 given certain buffs or certain boons and banes. So first off we have Morita. The build I've given her is Shadow Sword, which she comes with Shove, Gale Force, Flashing Blade 4, Special Spiral 3, Joint Hone Speed, and Hardy Bearing 3. So obviously, Shadow Sword is the weapon that she comes with. Gave her Shove because when I was looking at her, she reminded me of the girl in the music video Misery Business by Paramore. Just kind of, if you're walking down this high school hallway and you saw this girl, she'd probably shove you into the lockers. No real reason, just I thought it was funny.
There's definitely a better skill. Comment section, do your thing.
Okay. There's not a meaning, like, obviously in situations there's probably a better skill, but for this, I couldn't think of a skill that would go with this setup that I had. And then we're going to do Gale Force, because this is going to be a Gale Force build on Morita. And then Flashing Blade 4 to help proc Gale Force every single turn. Special Spiral, since Shadow Sword 1 knocks that initial cooldown on Gale Force from 5 to 4 in the initial turn. And then as long as she outspeeds her opponent, she'll be getting the rest of the 4 charges on her first 2 initial hits, hopefully finishing off the unit. And then proccing Gale Force so she can move again. And then since you won't get the Shadow Sword effect again, you will now have the Special Spiral knocking Gale Force down to 3 cooldown, and therefore being able to get off Gale Force every single turn as long as Flashing Blade triggers, which should be super hard to do because she has an insanely high amount of speed. And also the C skill Joint Hone Speed is also to help push that speed boon up even further. Also just through Hardy Bearing on her, because the point of building Morita this way with her sword is to get off those first 2 hits quickly and kill the unit before they have a chance to counterattack. And if the unit has Vantage and is in Vantage range, it could potentially screw up this build and screw up how Shadow Sword works and leave Morita with her kind of middling defense very vulnerable. So that's just to protect against units who have skills that change the attack order. Next we move on to Berkut. I won't even try to pronounce his weapon, but keeping him with his base weapon, Reposition, because Reposition is what you should have on every Cavalier unit. He originally had Reprisal, but I don't see anyone who's ever used Reprisal as a skill effectively or in a way that actually makes sense to use it. So because of his high res stat, we're going to give him Iceberg. And we're giving him Iceberg just because it's a baseline. So as long as you can get off 15 extra points of damage with your special, that's considered a good return on investment for your special. So with Iceberg, he's going to be hitting for at minimum 31 damage. No, a minimum 16 extra damage when his special procs. So that's why we're going to give him Iceberg. Obviously Warding Stance 4 is what he comes with. It's a great skill. And now for... he doesn't come with the B skill, so because of his reposition, and we always want to make him the best, making him an enemy phase unit here, and also enemy phase unit. So defense res link, how I'm envisioning this Berkut to be used is you would throw a unit in, use reposition to get them out of there. So you'd make Berkut your frontline man, and then because he used reposition, he gets the buffs from defense res link. Also Hone Cavalry, because typically if you want your defensive calves to help buff up your offensive units, and you want your offensive units to help buff up your defensive units. So since we're calling Berkut our defensive wall here and making him an enemy phase unit, we're going to give him Home Cavalry to support any offensive cavalry units on the team. And then, again, going with the reposition thing, if you don't move the unit after you reposition them out, he will get the buffs from attack defense bond as well, further enhancing his attack and tankiness. Now we're moving on.
So as someone who actually summoned this unit, just going to gloss over the fact that he just hurts his own allies, right?
And I have accounted for that in a special little bonus I'm going to do after this with your exact units in mind. My brother's here, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. He's helped me do this review. But don't worry, I will address that very shortly. That skill can actually be very powerful if used the right way and very beneficial. So now we have Fallen Corrin. We still have her with Savage Breath and Dragon Fang. Those are the two skills that she comes with. Attack speed solo synergizes very, very well with her weapon, obviously buffing her up if she's by herself. And I took off her Sudden Panic. I know people like the Sudden Panic skill, but to me it doesn't seem very effective. If I'm going to use a panic skill like that, I like my unit's HP to be in the mid-50s before I consider putting either Panic Ploy or some sort of panic skill on them. So because her HP is at 43, I don't think she's going to be impacting very many units, because mostly you're going to be coming across a lot of merged up units, a lot of buffed up units whose HP would not fall into the range where Sudden Panic would hit them. So we're just going to go with a classic Vantage 3, since she will be...
Classic!
It is classic. It is one of the most abused skills in this game. Because she's going to be by herself, she won't have many support units around her. So opponent's units will probably be targeting her, so if she gets damaged, Vantage is going to help her longevity. Also, because she wants to be by herself due to her A skill and her weapon, mostly the C skill is for units who is to support your other units, but obviously she doesn't want to be supported by anyone, and she doesn't want to support anyone else. So a wave skill here really helps her out, since she can reap the rewards of those skills herself without having to have someone else next to her to buff up or anything like that. So any wave skill here we do, I just put speed just to hopefully get her speed a little bit higher so she ensures doubles on some faster units. And then Quick Impulse, just because Dragon Fang having a 3-turn cooldown. With Quick Impulse, it's going to be shot down to 2, and then if you initiate with her, it's going to be attack, shield attack, reduced to 1, opponent will attack, reduced to 0, proc and Dragon Fang, and then on her follow-up attack, she will be able to use Dragon Fang. So that's basically ensuring that she gets her, in conjunction with the speed wave here and her buffs from her weapon and her A skill, it's ensuring that she gets off her special on the first turn of combat. Now, Tiki is an amazing unit coming out of this banner. She's basically built right out of the package. The only thing that I really changed about her is her A skill, and there are so many great A skills to choose from. It's just when she comes with a brazen attack speed, I believe, and because you need to be below a certain threshold for that to work and above a certain threshold for Special Fighter to work, they just don't really synergize well. It's a really small window of opportunity to actually have both of those both of those skills activate, so we might as well give a skill that's going to activate regardless, and also when she's at very high HP, because that's the point of this build. Also, as you know, in the most recent Tempest trial that came out today, the day of this recording, we're getting Renewal 3 as a Sacred Seal slot. And I know there's a lot of Sacred Seals that can be used in many different situations, but I think with Special Fighter wanting to be above 50% HP to have that take effect, I think Renewal can be a really broken skill here, because with Attack Defense solo and with Solitary Dream letting her get normal 2 movement, she'll probably be by herself a lot, and you won't have a healer around to help out, so the Renewal can be abused pretty regularly, keeping her within Special Fighter range and making her very hard to kill for opposing units. Alright, so I'm really glad you brought up Berkut's weapon effect earlier in the video, just because I was inspired by a unit you recently pulled and were asking me on questions on what to build, and then you also pulled the Berkut.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and kind of make a sample Cavalier team with Berkut and some supporting units, I think would synergize really well with his weapon. So as you can see, a little bit different build than the build that I did previously on Berkut when I was just individually analyzing him. Wow, I had a minor stroke there. Analyzing him as an individual unit. So just a few basics about this team. We have Berkut, Brave Lynn, Olin, and Ares. I didn't want to go too heavy on units that are really hard to pull. I was thinking about putting Greed in here, but he's really hard to pull and not a lot of people have him. Ares is a fantastic unit and a lot easier to pull since he's at 4 and 3-star rarity now. I also wanted to make sure I got one of each color type, and so we could have a good balanced Cavalier team. So here's how we're going to break it down. So as you can see, the weapon's still the same. Now we have Glacies on him just because we're not really concerned about him proccing his special as soon as possible. We can let it build up, and since Glacies packs a more powerful punch, I have no problem giving him a more powerful one that is built to kind of wait out a couple enemy phases. Still warding stance 4 to give him that defensive bulk. Wings of Mercy. So this is going to synergize well when he inflicts his 20 damage on the other units. So my original thought here was, obviously you have Brave Lynn, and these are the IVs, and my brother came to me and he was like, what am I going to do with a minus speed Lynn? Well, I was thinking about it, and there are a lot of mages in AR, in Arena, and in content in general, there's a lot of mages to take care of, and because Lynn has a fairly good res stat for a mounted bow unit, why not take advantage of that? So we're going to give her default Brave Bow. This is a build that if you're running Lynn, probably 99% of people have already given her Brave Bow Plus. We're also going to give her Iceberg to help out because we're going to be boosting her res stat as high as possible, and like we said, the benchmark is to be able to give 15 extra points of damage when it procs, and because her res is over 30, she's going to be at least dealing 15 points of extra damage when her special procs. Also, now these skills are where it comes into play when she gets hit by Berkut's weapon effect. So if a mage attacks him, he will counterattack regardless of range, and he will make a follow-up attack, and the unit cannot make a follow-up attack, but he will deal 20 damage to Lynn, dropping her HP from 35 to 15. Now this is crucial because for Desperation and Brash Assault to work, she has to be under 50% HP. Brazen's under 80, but Desperation and Brash Assault are under 50. So now that she's well under 50%, she's going to be making 4 consecutive attacks, because Brash Assault will guarantee that she follows up, and Desperation will guarantee that all 4 of those attacks happen in a row without retaliation from another unit. Also, Brazen attack res just to buff up her attack, since her attack isn't very high. It's not the hardest hitting attack in the game, and also buff up her res stat, because with this one you're going to be attacking a lot of those mages. Since most mages are squishy and have lower defense, it's great to attack them with a unit with physical damage instead of magical damage. And also, I was also considering giving her, I believe it's called Granny Shield, which neutralizes the effective against cavalry weapons. Personally thinking about Micaiah right here. She still has 27 speed, and if I remember correctly, Micaiah is a fairly slow unit, so she could definitely make sure Micaiah doesn't attack twice. So she can try to tank the one hit, keep Brazen attack res, with the buffed up res stat, she can try to tank the one hit even though it is effective against cavalry, or just put Granny Shield in here, and it will neutralize the effect that Micaiah's Tome has against Lynn. And then also, if we jump back to Berkut, we have Wings of Mercy, so now whatever ally he damages, he can go in and rally their attack res, or jump in front of them and provide a shield. So Wings of Mercy is to go ahead and make sure that he doesn't leave the units that he damaged out to dry.
Make sure he's not a dick.
Yeah, he looks like a dick, but in this build, in my heart of hearts, in this build, in this team, he's not a dick. And obviously, Thunderhead Olwen, not as maxed out on the or synergizing with the damage that Berkut's weapon does, but you know, with Desperation, making sure she gets 2 hits off at the same, 2 hits off back to back, and because she has Thunderhead, and we're running a cavalry team with Hone Cavalry, Goad Cavalry, Ward Cavalry, she's gonna get so many buffs from those. So the Thunderhead Tome, what it does is it takes buffs from other units and turns them into direct damage on top of her initial attack. So because of all those buffs, she's going to be getting a ton of damage from her Thunderhead Tome here, and because of Desperation, those will be hitting very heavily twice in a row without retaliation. Also, Brazen attack speed. Also give her Life and Death to bump up her attack and bump up her speed, and Brazen attack speed. So when she does fall underneath that threshold because of Berkut's weapon effect, she's going to most certainly outspeed any opponent with 50 speed, and not counting the buffs from Goad Cavalry and Home Cavalry, and also Pack a Punch when she does land. And
Pack a Punch, that's Call of Duty.
Yeah, I know, Call of Duty reference, blah blah blah. I know you're the best Call of Duty player. We're Fire Emblem Heroes. Stick to the game.
I am.
Stick to the game. All right, and then Ares, he isn't designed to be a he isn't designed to tank damage from Berkut's weapon. He's here to just assist and round out the team as a red unit, as a sword unit. Also, his Dark Mistletoe is basically built-in special spiral, and how can you not love that? I was very surprised when they added him to the 4 and 3 star pool just because of how broken his weapon is. So as you can see, this is kind of throwing it back a little bit to Berkut's build that I had done previously, right here, where we took a lot of advantages, or a lot of buffs from being able to reposition. So his skill here on this team is what I envision is he will be providing the Home Cavalry buff. He'll watch one of these other units go into the battle, and then what he's going to do is he's going to go in, reposition them out of harm, becoming the wall himself, because he has a fairly tanky defense stat. Maybe against a mage he wouldn't suffer so well with a terrible 14 defense, but he's pretty tanky in the defense department for a Cavalier. So he's going to reposition them out, going to get the attack defense buffs from attack def link in his B slot, and then we're also going to give him double attack defense bond seals, so we can just crank that way up, giving him an absurd amount of attack, an absurd amount of defense. Just because he's going up, he's not attacking, he's going to be an enemy phase unit and just reposition either Olwen or our Brave Lady Lynn over here out of the way, and protecting them hopefully from most opposing units. Alright, so that kind of wraps it up. I hope you guys found that interesting. If so, let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you have certain units that you'd like me to do, and maybe I'll continue doing this series in the future. Are you inspired for your team now with this exact Brave Lynn and this exact Berkut?
Yes, I also want to say, this episode of Tech Lock is brought to you by Diet Mountain Dew. Diet Mountain Dew. If it tastes as fresh as the Rockies, drink Diet Mountain Dew. Please sponsor us.
He has a soft spot for Diet Mountain Dew. He's brought, what, 2 cases now this week? Well, 1 you had to throw away, but 2 cases. Alright, enough about Diet Mountain Dew. We're going to talk about Fire Emblem Heroes. You're getting off track. Alright, thank you again. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again here shortly. Take care.